welcome back to Living on Jesus Street. I'm Pringle Franklin, and I'm here with Father Nicholas Amato, and we're starting our second segment of our session, our series on centering prayer. And we're going to try to answer your questions about how you can practice centering prayer and what you might expect. So first of all, Father Nicholas, what would I need physically? What do I need if I'm going to practice centering prayer?
What do you need? The basic, well, to just say without getting into it all, there's verbal vocal prayer, column 1. There's meditation, column 2. There's contemplation, column 3. 3 kinds of ways to pray. Jesus prayed in all 3 ways. So we've been looking at contemplation, and what you, quote, need is in some way to address your ego and be able to place it aside so that you can enter into the presence without any physical discomfort and without any thinking or mental activity. Because then you'll be at a deeper sense of presence, a deeper sense of who you are. And it's in that space that God can be as God is. Because if you start thinking, then you're limiting how God can be manifest.
So for me, let's just say I've never done this before at all. Would I need any sort of, I like to tell people you need to set aside a particular place in your house and maybe pick a certain time of day. Do you think?
I think you need to do whatever it takes for you to motivate you.
Yes, okay.
So if you can increase your motivation to want to do this, I think what I do is I have a special place in a room that borders on woods on 3 sides. And there's windows completely around the room. Then I have a chair, and I have an icon of the Trinity, the Rublev icon, and I have a little pair of rosary beads, and I have a Bible in Spanish because it's fun to kind of read it in Spanish. I have a candle, so it's a cozy place that I look forward to being in.
Yes.
So that helps. I like the scent of things. Scent is a olfactory sense is stronger for me. So I use a candle, and a Yankee candle, and I make the candle the kind of the scent of the season. So for Lent it'll be grape, for Christmas it'll be, for Thanksgiving it's pumpkin pie, But whatever it takes. So also in the morning I'll always have a steaming cup of coffee. And what I find is I start sipping it and then I leave it alone. It gets cold because I'm so taken up. But whatever you need to do to kind of draw you into the space, it kind of helps prepare you and motivates you.
Well, and I'll tell you what, when it gets cold, like this time of year it gets cold and my house doesn't heat very well, I put on my gigantic bathrobe, my teardrop bathrobe, and I wrap up in that, and I come down and sit in my prayer chair every morning, first thing I do, and sit there for at least 30 minutes. And if I didn't have that bathrobe, I don't think I would get out of bed. Yeah.
Well, I wear a hoodie, and because the hoodie is kind of nice, it reminds me of the monastery that I affiliate with, and it confines you in a nice warm space. And I put my hands in the sleeves, and here I sit, and I do that for about a half hour in the morning and a half hour in the evening.
So we would want to have sort of a schedule, really, I think, and to have a place where we look forward to going, that's set aside, that's not in the middle of the kitchen with your 5 kids running around making noise or whatever. It's your own spot. It doesn't have to be large.
And it could be you get up 10 minutes before everybody else does.
Yes, right.
But you've got to create the space and kind of keep to it. So the space, the environment, the schedule, and what attracts you to it all help.
And then when you're there, so what are some tools, such as the breath or the sacred word, but tell them some tools that they can use.
Okay. With centering prayer, you basically want to place aside the you that is your ego. And the ego is a good thing. It's the principle of differentiation. So it helps me know who I am and what my role is and what my responsibilities are. And it helps me be effective in the world. But when I want to come before God, I want a deeper sense of who I am. I don't want to be thinking, and I don't want to be dragging all the past with me and all the concerns, and I don't want to be worried about the future. So I got to place the ego aside. So how do I do that becomes the task.
Right.
The 2 sources of who you are, your ego, 2 sources. your mind and your body. So your mind tells you who you are, because ever since you were born, your mind has been telling you who you are. You know, so who you are when you go to bed at night and wake up in the morning, unless you're having dreams or rapid eye movements, you remember who you are in the morning. You don't think you're a different person. So your body and your mind contribute to the maintaining of the ego. So if you're going to have the ego placed aside, you got to do two things. You got to deal with quieting the body and quieting the mind. Once you do that, there's a deeper sense of who you are that's ready to be present to God. And there's no thinking, but there is cortical activity. So there is awareness. Okay? But you can't will awareness. You can't say, okay, I'm going to be aware now. No. You got to place the ego aside to be aware. Got to take care of my body, got to take care of my mind. So those are the two tools.
So to take, this is how I think of it based on what you've taught me. So to settle the body, I find that the breath is effective.
Absolutely essential.
So what should I be doing with my breath?
Okay. So breathing, the way I teach it is, when you sit comfortably, feet together, as straight up as you can and still be comfortable, because some people have some back issues. I place my hands in my lap. So some people place their hands on their knees, some people palms up. I kind of put my hands interlocking like this because I think of this myself and this is God and I want this kind of a union. So I sit like that. You start breathing then and you fill your lungs and your shoulders go back to open your chest cavity and your chin goes up to open your windpipe. Of course, even in CPR, we always bend the person's head back to open the windpipe. Doing that creates a maximum amount of air you're taking in. So breathing in, I think lung, shoulders, chin. Then breathing out, I think forehead, eyes, jaw. Notice how everything collapses. Then I breathe in, lungs, shoulders, chin. Relax my forehead, soften my eyes, unclench my jaw. Breathing in, and so on. What I also invite my folks to do is to pick a number from 1 to 10 that represents your stress level at the moment. So I may be very stressed at a 10, or I may mostly, if I were to do it right now, I'd say right now, with all the cameras rolling, probably an 8. And as I breathe and do this, maybe a succession of 5 or 6 times, I then ask the person, what level are you at now? And it's always 1, 2, possibly 3 levels below. You keep breathing like this, you will come down to a 2 or a 3. So my cue is, don't go into the second tool, which is, I'll tell you, it's a word in a minute. Don't leave the breathing exercise until you're at least a 4. Because if your body's not relaxed, your mind's never going to relax. It just won't. So once you've reached a 4, and it usually takes 10 rounds of breaths for me, okay? And once you're at that relaxed level, at least as they say, 4, 3, or 4, then what you do is you choose a word. Now you're going to tend to the mind, the second source of ego. And you're going to do something very minimal with the mind. You're going to think of a word or words, no more than 4 syllables total, okay, that are, this is a definition, that are a symbol of your desire, your longing to be with God and to live out of that presence with it, maybe a changed attitude. Okay, so I want to repeat that. You choose a word that is a symbol of your intention to be with God and to live out of that God, live out of that presence. Mm-hmm. Now, it's a sacred word because you're making it sacred. It doesn't have to be a holy word. It doesn't have to be Jesus. It doesn't have to be Abba. It doesn't have to be holy. It doesn't have to be Adonai. It's sacred because you're making it sacred. So if I were to give you a couple, right? Well, I'll ask you. I'm going to tell you what, for me right now, a word would be, no more than 4 syllables would be I long for you. It's a symbol of my intention to be with God and to live out of that presence. I long for you. What, would you have one?
I'll probably just say peace of God.
Peace.
Peace of God.
Peace
Yeah.
of God. Okay, so that's a symbol of Pringle's desire to be with God and live out of that.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'd ask you now, just take a moment. What would yours be? Okay, now you got two tools. Each one addresses a part of the ego. If we can tend to these two tools, the ego will be placed aside and you'll be at a deeper level of cortical activity than thinking. Okay?
So if I have peace of God, then I've done the breathing and I've calmed myself down, and now I have the sacred word, which is peace of God. What am I supposed to do with
Right,
that?
that's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
Right, so now you take the sacred word, because you're at a 3 or a 4 of relaxation, and you synchronize it to your breathing. Okay, so peace of God, or peace of God. If it's one word, like yes, yes, yes. Okay, so you're synchronizing the word or words, no more than 4 syllables, to the breathing. Those are the two tools. Once you're comfortable, you let go of the word or words, and then you just do the breathing, continue the breathing. Now the mind is pretty much at rest, but the body, you're still thinking about the body. Then you let go of awareness of the breath. With that done, the ego slides over like a sliding door, and you're ready to float, sail, be, plunge, relish, savor the presence of God. That's as easy as that. Sacred word, synchronized to breathing, both components of the ego. Both addressed, ego steps aside, and you float into God's presence. Now, 2 things are going to happen. 2 things you can count on happening. 2 things, if this is a new effort for you, could be used over and over and over and over and over again. You're going to be distracted, and you're going to start thinking. So you're going to hear distraction, you're going to hear street noise, talking, stomach rumbling, cell phone vibrating. Something's going to happen. I'm going to tell you a way to deal with that. Or you start thinking, am I doing this right? I don't have this right. Or, oh, this is great. I love this. All of that is thinking. And so when you're either thinking, find yourself thinking, or distracted, go back to the word or words, the breathing, and then the floating into God's presence. You may do that for another 10 seconds of just peace. You start thinking again. Back to the word, the breathing, the letting go. So you may have to do that continuously. But the thing is that, and the saints tell us this, no matter how many times you do it, it just shows your commitment to God,
Yes.
your
right.
commitment to presence, and your openness to do this. So maybe a third of my time, and I do it a half hour in the morning and a half hour in the evening, a third of my time is spent thinking.
And sometimes we don't even recognize that we're thinking.
Right.
And all of a sudden, I'm like, oh my goodness, I was trying to focus on Christ within me and being with the Lord, and all of a sudden I'm thinking about.
It's snagged you. It's seduced you. Can I tell this quick funny story about thinking? They say there are 5 levels of thinking, and the deeper the level of thinking you're involved in, the harder it is to get out of it. And it's likened to a boat coming down a river. And the first level of thinking, the easiest one to leave is you see the boat and you note it and the boat goes by. That's easy. The second level of thinking is a little deeper. You note the boat and you say, wow, that's a beautiful boat. Oh, I love the sail. It's got a Genoa. I love the mainsail. It's beautiful. I love the colors. What's the name on it? Now you're at the second level of thinking. You're deeper. It's kind of got you, and it's hard to, you don't even know you're thinking, as you said.
Yes, right.
The third level is you leave the presence and you go down to the shore and you're looking at the boat close up, the name, the registration number, what have you. Fourth level of thinking, you're on the boat talking to the people. Now you're planning for the next day and you've completely left contemplation behind. Fifth level, worst of all, you're down in the galley cooking meals for the people on the boat. You've completely given up. So a wise word is snag it, note it, and let it go.
Some people have asked me, what's wrong with thinking? Why am I not supposed to be thinking? Can you explain it?
Easy.
Okay.
We all have contemplative moments. A moment where something captures us and engulfs us. I mean, go to any museum. I remember seeing Guernica and just being so captivated by it. I couldn't, I left the group couldn't find me, and I was transfixed. This horror of war had engulfed me, and I couldn't separate myself from the painting. So that's a contemplative moment where you and the subject are one.
Mm-hmm.
You and God are one. You and the sunset are one. You and the newborn are one. You in looking into the eyes of someone you love dearly are one. That's what contemplative prayer is. Talking gets in the way. Thinking gets in the way.
Yes.
Because thinking about it, again, you become a subject and that becomes the object, but just relishing it. And we don't relish, we don't savor. And it's a shame, but we don't.
We don't. And one thing, I was just thinking about this when listening to you talk. When we start to think about something, there's always an element of wanting to control it. You know what I'm saying? Because we all have our desires. Well, I wish this would happen. I wish that would happen. But I'm thinking about something. So now I'm starting to get involved and want to control it. Whereas when we're just trying to be with God and love God and rest in His presence, we are not trying to control anything.
Right. That's a very interesting and important point, that thinking puts you in control of the parameters of the space, of the content. Most discoveries, most connections, connecting the dots, come when you're relaxed. So it's the space that is furtive, that is fruitful, that you have to allow for so that you can then have the insight. And just thinking it through sometimes just muddles you. You know, when you've been doing something creative and your mind gets muddled, you need to step away and you come back. But that's why we rewrite. That's why we do things called drafts, because what comes out is so much better than what it started out as. So you need the space where no thinking takes place, where the creative juices can really flow.
Well, one thing that helped me when I first started into this was I read in one of Thomas Keating's books, Intimacy with God. He said, if during your time of centering prayer, let's say it's a 20-minute time that you've set aside, if you have to return 1,000 times, if your mind wanders away 1,000 times, that is, there are 1,000 opportunities to come back to the Lord.
Yeah.
And I find that is encouraging.
Yeah.
That, okay, you're not going to fail. People often say to me, I'm going to mess up or I'm going to fail. Can you fail at centering prayer?
No. Every time I'm distracted and I catch myself, because I don't always catch myself, it's an opportunity to say, Lord, I'm here. And if I'm so distracted, what I'll often do is say, you got me for 30 minutes, and I'm not going to do anything else. I'm going to try to rest as quietly as I can. Strengthen me with your spirit. That's an act of love. I mean, it really is.
It is.
I mean,
well, and for instance, today, when I was doing my time, and I'm sitting there and being still and resting, and I saw really fast the face of someone I love, just like, whoop. So I did quickly just say, Lord, please be with that person and bless them. But then I brought my attention right back.
Yeah.
I didn't go into a long, but it's a reminder to me later to pray for that person.
I do have a notepad right at my side, because sometimes I'll have this creative thing that comes out, because this silent space is so creative, and and you're so imbued with the Spirit that something can come up. So I'll just jot it down because I don't want to forget it. So it's not just a creative thing. It could be call mom,
Right.
or we need bread, or get milk at the store. So, but at least it puts it there and doesn't keep it here, or you're not worried about forgetting it.
Yes, and then you can move on.
Yeah.
So if someone is beginning a practice, how should they, in terms of setting aside time, should it be daily, and how long should it?
Well, since the days of Thomas Keating, which were the early 70s when centering prayer really came into vogue, I've done 20 minutes every day. And then I grew to 30 minutes. And then I grew to 2 30-minute segments. And I must say it's not always easy to do it in the evening because I've got to cook. In my house, I do the cooking. So, but what I've learned to do is so that I can have you see, you got to change your lifestyle a little bit if you want this.
You do.
So what I do is I prep the food in the morning and I cook it mid-afternoon, and then it goes into a warmer, so that I'm free from 5 to 5:30 to do this. If I was, sauteing and baking, it'd be too much. My mind's on what's in the oven. So it's always in the warmer by 5 o'clock.
But I agree with you. You have got to be willing to change your lifestyle a little bit to accommodate it. But the wonderful thing is once you start doing this on a daily basis, you don't want to give it up. And so it becomes easier and easier to include it as part of your day.
I think the motivation is not just the environment and the smell of a candle or coffee or whatever, but it's also the pleasure this gives you, and the groundedness, the foundational. I mean, I can't not pray in the morning. I feel so unanked. I feel so unenergized. I don't feel the same kind of energy. So, I do it a little extreme. I get up really early in the morning because that's important, and my yoga is important, and my running is important. And so it takes me 3 hours to be ready for the public at 7 o'clock. But it takes going to bed early. And people, so people know if I go out to dinner, people know that Nicholas leaves the table at 8:30 because he's got to be home by 9.
Well, there's discipline involved, and I do know a lot of the viewers out there. You probably are raising kids, or you're working. You may be working 2 jobs. You may be taking care of an aging parent. I mean, you don't necessarily have the luxury of setting up your day exactly as you would like it to be. But I have found that if you can segue sometime first thing in the morning, that's really the only time that you're sure that you can get. And I do also pray for people. So what I tend to do personally is I'll do 20 or 30 minutes of my centering prayer time first. Then I'll go into maybe a time of 10 minutes or 15 minutes of actually praying for people, where I'm allowed to think and I'm allowed to speak, and I can do the typical type prayer things that people might do.
Let me just say on that note, Pringle, what I'll do is if someone is suffering very much, I will place them in my hands, and I will take them to and so my sacred word would be, hold her close. And so I'll take that cancer patient or whoever into my prayer with me, and then I'll let go of it and let God and me and her come into a kind of union without thinking. It's kind of a profound way. And then what I tell the person is, this morning I took you into the silence for 30 minutes. And that is so uplifting to them. Rather than just saying, I prayed for you, which is so perfunctory, but to say, I took you into the silence for 30 minutes.
What an honor.
Isn't it?
That would be.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Or I'll say, did you feel any nudges? I'll say, that was God's grace. It's a way of engaging people in this too.
It really is. And it's a life-changing practice. So I encourage anyone who has an interest to try it and see. And then try it again, and then try it again, because it gets easier. Don't you think it gets easier?
I think so. Here's the thing. Once you have a taste of this, it satisfies your longing for God like nothing else can.
That's right.
So it doesn't have to be, if you say it's 10 minutes, it doesn't have to be ecstasy for 10 minutes. It could be in for 5 seconds and then you're out thinking for 7 minutes. In for 30 seconds and then you're back into thinking again. As long as you get a smidgen, it's kind of like a pedophore. You don't have to have a whole sheet cake, just a pedophore. Because once you do that, your longing has contacted its proper object, and nothing will satisfy like it ever again.
Well, and the pedophore reminds me that you can take this skill, once you have it up and running, and you can drop into it for like 5 minutes. Let's say you're caught in traffic and you feel that you're stressed and you're running late for an appointment. You can drop into this place of just focusing on God's presence, just doing the deep breathing, and you will feel so calm. And the way that you're viewing the negative situation that you're in will completely change. And then the Spirit comes and takes over. Yeah. It's amazing.
In this book, I was saying in one of our other sessions that here are the tools that we just went through with you. And I talk about I want to live my life in God all day long. Like St. Paul, I want to pray always. How do I do that? And actually, Pringle has the answer. She just gave me the answer to that. You can do it 2 ways. You can go into God's presence in contemplative prayer and then be changed, reflecting on that, and come out of it with a different attitude. I call those in-out experiences. Or you can be doing things out there that take you deeper. So she just said, stop at a red light. Those 2 or 3 minutes can take you deeper. Chopping vegetables for the soup, just stopping and looking at the vegetables can take you deeper. I have a Westminster chime in my grandfather clock, and when it rings at 15 minutes, I stop, take two sets of deep breaths, and I just make that a contemplative moment. So you can live in God by going into prayer and coming out, or you can live in God by all these things out there and having each one or any one of them take you deeper.
Yes.
And imagine the grace of a red light.
The grace of a red light. And I would say that before I started practicing centering prayer on a regular basis, and I was already a Christian, and I prayed and went to Bible study, went to church, and all of that. But there were times where, if I had a lot going on, I would actually feel anxious. I would feel stressed. There'd be times where I'd feel like, I don't know if I can get all this done in one day that I have to do. And it could feel suffocating almost. Since starting this practice and having read Nicholas's book and gone to several retreats that he's led at Metcon Abbey, I don't experience that anymore, because as soon as I feel this sense of, oh, there's more than I can handle, I know that there's more than I can handle, and I know that I just have to give it to the Lord, and not in some cheesy way, but like in the sincere way of dwelling in Him and in every space of my life, so that without there's no space for the anxiety. There's no space for the feeling of being overwhelmed.
Right. And even from a non-spiritual point of view, just the relaxation and the quieting of the mind is going to open you up to possibilities you wouldn't have imagined, because the anxiety is pumping cortisol into your prefrontal cortex, and you just can't deal with it.
Right.
So you just psychologically you need quiet, calm space. And the added gift, of course, is that you encounter God's presence. So and that's the benefit.
That's the benefit. So I hope that this encourages you, and I hope that you will try it, and that the Lord will give you more than you could ever hope for or imagine. Thank you for joining us.